In 2001, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation ran a TV special and it was called Talking to Americans. And in it, a prominent Canadian comedian by the name of Rick Mercer went to the United States to ask American citizens, students, professors, celebrities, and politicians what they thought about so-called Canadian issues, when in fact, all of the issues that Mercer presented to the Americans were one big hoax, and all of them were absolutely off-the-wall and ridiculous ideas about what Canadians are like. But guess what? Americans believed him. For example, he went to the United States and he asked Americans what they thought about the Canadian system of voting, which apparently involves using birch bark and pine cones as ballots in political elections. He also asked them what they thought about the recent legalization of things like VCRs and staplers. And then he went and he talked about so-called international issues. Among them included the recent US bombings of Edmonton, which happens to be a large Canadian city, and the recent Russian invasion of Saskatchewan, which happens to be a large Canadian province. And last I checked, Canada hasn't been invaded by the Russians unless something's happened since I was last home for winter break. But guess what? All of these Americans bought it, and it wasn't just American citizens, it was politicians too. Mercer was able to get interviews with the likes of then presidential candidate George W. Bush and then Vice President Al Gore, and they fell for it as well. According to Kenneth Crisholm in a review of Talking to Americans from the film website imdb.com, Mercer pokes fun at the great Canadian irritation that while Canadians know so much about the United States, Americans, on the other hand, know next to nothing about Canada. But Canadians love the program. It's actually the most successful TV comedy special in Canadian history, with 2.7 million viewers tuned in for it and many more in syndication, including myself. And it was this special that inspired me to instruct you, my American friends, on a few things about Canada so you can get to know me and my country a little bit better. So I'm going to take a look at what makes Canada different from the United States, both in language and in culture. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about Canadian English and the differences in language, because there are some major differences in the way that Canadians speak and write. Sounds like a great idea, eh? Did you get that? I used the word "a." And I know that is a big thing that a lot of Americans think of when they think about Canadians. It's those two little letters, E-H. Merriam-Webster's dictionary says that A is used to ask confirmation or repetition or to express inquiry. So basically, if I'm talking to you, I can make the statement, "Today is a nice day." Or if I want to get your approval and say, yeah, you agree with me, I can say, "Hey, it's a nice day out today, eh?" Or you could say, "That was a great hockey game last night, eh?" Or "Lasagna for dinner tonight was fantastic, eh?" You get the idea. Next, I don't have a doubt that you can figure out what I'm about to talk about. Yeah, it's those three little letters, O-U-T, out. You guys might say it ow, but we say it out in Canada. No, it's not hoot. But it's not just the way that we talk that's different. We also spell words slightly differently. For example, you might not know this. Words that generally end in O-R in the United States will be spelled O-U-R in Canada. Examples of this would be the words color, rumor, humor, neighbor, savior. There's a lot more as well. And the last letter of the alphabet, we say it differently, believe it or not. While you say Z, we say Z, which gets really awkward when you're singing the alphabet song. T-U-V, W-X, Y, and Z. Doesn't exactly rhyme, but hey, that's just one of the ways that we're different in language between Canada and the United States, even though we both speak English. But not only are we different in language, we're also different in culture. And when I think of Canadian culture, two things come to mind: Tim Hortons and hockey. Now, if you're from the South, you've probably never heard of Tim Hortons before. It's a coffee shop. It was started by a hockey player and named after him. He died in a car accident quite a few years back. They serve coffee, donuts, and sandwiches with an atmosphere that's somewhere between a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks, but it's way more popular than both of those. I know you're thinking I'm crazy right now, but here's a stat for you. According to Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, I'm not even joking, in 2004, there were more Tim Hortons per capita in Canada than there were Starbucks, Krispy Kremes, Dunkin' Donuts, and McDonald's per capita in the United States combined. That is a lot of Tim Hortons coffee. The other thing when I think of Canadian culture is hockey, because hockey is life. Everybody has a favorite hockey team no matter who you ask. Mine personally is the Montreal Canadiens, Le Rouge Blanc et Bleu. I love these guys, and if you ask anyone, they'll have their favorite team, and they'll own hats, jerseys like that, flags to support their favorite team. And everybody tunes into Hockey Night in Canada. It happens every Saturday night. It's been on since the 1930s when people would tune in on the radio. Hockey is culture in Canada. And not only do we watch hockey, we also play hockey. You'll see pickup games on the streets all the time. Kids play when they're just this high, learning to skate. They'll have a hockey stick in hand as well. So, the way that we communicate and our obsession for Tim Hortons coffee and donuts and hockey aren't the only things that make Canada different from the United States. I mean, if only you guys had things like poutine, Mr. Dress-Up, or healthcare. You guys have no idea what you're missing out on. But there's also lots that makes us the same. I mean, we still enjoy the same movies, we enjoy the same snacks for the most part, and us believers both worship the same God. I mean, even our independence holidays are still only 3 days apart, and we both celebrate those with fireworks. But if there's one thought that I want to leave you with today, it's this. I encourage you to learn more about what makes us different, and that in turn is going to help bring us together as Canadian and American brothers and sisters.